morning. I'm Mrs. Leip, and I am going to read Chapter 18 of Bearwalker, an Act. We all stare at the man who is so unlike the cringing figure we'd seen just moments before. It was all an act. He'd fooled us again. Mrs. Osgood takes a step towards him, and he points the shotgun at her chest. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," he says. He's talking like a cliched villain in a bad movie, but he's no less dangerous for that. Mr. Wilbur reaches out to take Mrs. Osgood's arm and pull her back so that she is standing next to me. Mrs. Mack smiles. It's not the sunny, insincere smile he showed everyone earlier in the day when he was playing the part of the genial camp director. This grin is that of a wolf that has been trapped by its prey. He motions with the shotgun at the table. "Sit, all of you." Mrs. Osgood reaches behind my back as she moves toward the table, pushing something hard under my belt. I slip my hand back there to feel it and know what it is right away. No one else has noticed this exchange between us. Mr. Mack doesn't pay attention to the fact that when I sit down, it's not at the table, but on the stool in the corner that is closest to the back door. I'm by a window where I can look outside into the dark night. I'm just a little kid, no threat at all. Everyone except Mr. Mack is sitting now. I wonder how he expects to control this situation all by himself. What if one of the parents or Mrs. Smiler comes in? What about all the kids out there? Someone taps twice lightly on the back door. "Now, who could that be?" Mr. Mack says, his smile getting even broader. Without lowering the shotgun, he backs up to the door. He taps on it 3 times, unlatches it, and then steps back again, never taking his eyes off the 4 adults sitting at the table. The door opens, but the skinny man with the thinning blonde hair who steps through it is not the one I had been dreading to see. It's one of Mr. Mack's supposedly slaughtered assistants. The sleeves of his khaki shirt are rolled up now, and I can see the tattoo of a cartoon canary with an arrow through its heart on his right bicep. "Back from the grave so soon, Cal?" Mr. Mack smiles. "Huh?" the man says. "What do you mean?" "A private jest," Mr. Mack says. "Where's your equally undeceased sibling?" "What?" Cal says. I can see now why he and Mr. Mack's other assistants hung back without saying anything earlier in the day. Plainly, Cal was not hired for his mental acuity. As Grammar Katuri might put it, he's a few potatoes short of a bushel. "Where is your brother Marlin?" Mr. Mack asks, his voice insultingly slow, as if talking to a 3-year-old. Cal doesn't catch it. "Oh," he says, pointing. "Out there." "Bring him in," Mr. Mack says. "Oh, okay." Cal goes back outside as Mr. Mack shakes his head. "Monosyllables work best when communicating with morons," he says, looking at the Philos and Mr. Wilbur, as if asking for their sympathy. "It's so hard to get good people these days." He pauses, waiting for a response. No one says anything, but Mrs. Osgood, who is being ignored right now by Mr. Mack, makes a shooting gesture toward me with her hand under the table. I understand what she means. "Well," Mr. Mack says, his tone that of someone who loves to hear himself speak, "if no one is going to ask, I should just tell you. That tale about my murderous associate who remains lurking somewhere out there in the woods, terminating his co-workers, was a bit of a fable. As you can see, Cal and Marlin remain alive and well. I also prevaricated just a bit about how our being unarmed. Marlin is in possession of a pistol, and is, no doubt, because he lacks the intellect to understand the concept of consequences, unafraid to use it. That turned out to be, quite frankly, fortuitous. I must confess that we did have a major labor dispute with our AirSat Aboriginal colleague. Different goals, you see. Lucre on our part, slaughter on his. As convoluted as Mr. Mack's diction is, I think I understand what he's saying. Mr. Mack and his 2 men are doing this to make money. They really did have a falling out with Jason Jones or Walker Whitebear or whoever he thinks he is, because his aims are darker and bloodier. He wants to kill us all while the others are just in it for the profit. From the looks in the faces of Mr. Wilbur and the Philos, they grasp the situation too. Mr. Wilbur finally says something, and even though it also sounds like it's from a bad movie script, it is appropriate. How do you expect to get away with this? Extremely well paid, Mr. Mack replies. The Bahamas are quite pleasant at this time of year, you know. There will be a substantial deposit in my bank account in the Cayman Islands. And as for Cal and Marlin, a return to incarceration, alas, seems fated to be their eventual recompense. There will be many witnesses left to tell at least part of the story. Many witnesses, I think, but not everyone. Even though Mr. Mack drew the line at mass murder, death is part of his scenario too. The Philos have to die so their land will be inherited by the nephews who are behind this whole plot. Mr. Wilbur and Mrs. Osgood and I have all heard too much. He's telling us all of this because he's planning on wiping out everyone in this room. I'm even more certain now of what I have to do or die trying, an act of desperation. I shift my weight onto my feet and lean a little toward the door. I'm quietly taking deep breaths, getting ready. I turn my eyes away from the lights of the hissing Coleman lanterns and focus on the darkness outside the window. 2 flashlights make bobbing circles on the ground that come closer and closer towards the building and past the window. 2 light raps come again on the back door. Mr. Mack sighs. It's already unlocked, Cal, he says in disgust. Just come in. The door opens and Cal enters, followed closely by his brother Marlin, who, though a little brawnier and darker haired, is a close copy of his twin brother. His sleeves are rolled up too. His tattoo shows a cartoon mouse with a dagger stuck through its head. It's funny the kind of details that your mind takes in, the way things seem to move in slow motion when you do something dangerous or foolish. Like what I'm going to do right now. I'm off my stool, ducking under the arms of Cal and Marlin as they grab at me and miss. Marlin swings the pearl-handed pistol to his left hand as if it is a club, trying to hit my head. The barrel grazes my cheekbone, drawing blood, but I'm past him. I sense as much as see Marlin raising his gun and cocking it. No, Mr. Mack roars. Watch them. I'll get the boy. Not if I can help it. My feet thud down the steps and hit the ground hard. It's dark, but even in the darkest night, there's always some light. My eyes have adjusted, more than the eyes of Mr. Mack. I'm counting on that as I see the slight glitter of water in front of me. I know that I'm already next to the lake, and I'm a fast runner. They won't be able to catch me. Even if they shoot at me, it's hard to hit a moving, dodging small person in the dark. Or so I hope. The beam of a flashlight sweeps over me. I feel a searing pain stab in my back and shoulders almost at the same time as I hear the thud of a shotgun blast. I take a few staggering steps on the wood planks of the dock before I fall. Black water closes over my head.